former ambassador to the United States and candidate for the new Kulanu party, Michael Oren. Thank you so much for joining us today on The Candidates.
Good to be with you, Aimee.
The controversy over Netanyahu's speech at Congress refuses to die down, with John Boehner announcing that he actually asked the Israeli ambassador not to inform the White House of the speech, and he himself purposely kept it a secret. Now, do you think, in light of everything that's been happening, that Netanyahu should cancel the speech?
I've said repeatedly that I think that would be good that he did cancel
Still?
the speech. I think there are other venues that he could go to. There's the AIPAC conference, which is occurring about the same time. It's 15,000 delegates. Most of the legislators go to that conference anyway. So you have all the benefits without any of the drawdowns.
But if he was to withdraw the speech, wouldn't that then look like he was retreating?
Or he could look magnanimous. He could look that he could say that I've come to the conclusion that our relationship with the United States, our bipartisan support in Congress is such paramount importance that I am changing my mind about this.
Had you been asked, or had such a request been made of you as ambassador, would you have kept it a secret?
From the White House? Well,
yeah.
In 2011, the Prime Minister gave a speech to a joint meeting of the Houses of Congress, and I was in charge of that, and I made sure that the White House was kept in the picture.
But had you been asked by the Speaker of the House to keep it a secret from the White House, would you have kept it a secret?
I think that would have been a very difficult call for any ambassador. I can only say the way I treated it, and I wasn't asked to keep it secret, but no one ever asked me to inform the White House either. I did.
Do you think that this speech to Congress has backfired, that is, harmed Israel's ability to influence the negotiations with Iran rather than assisting it?
We don't know yet. What I don't know, we will only know if and when this agreement is signed. We have to see what's in the agreement. We have to see if the Iranians will actually carry it out. And then we have to see whether Congress will demand the right to, well, specifically the Senate will demand the right to ratify it, and whether then it will ratify it. There are many, many steps that have to we go through whether we know whether this particular move of speaking to the joint meeting of Congress is helpful or harmful. One thing we can say, though, is that it has not helped the relationship with the Obama administration. The report of yesterday saying that the Obama administration is not going to update the Israeli government about progress in the talks. I haven't confirmed that report, by the way, but it is a report out there. And from what I hear from my many friends in Washington across the United States, we're very concerned about the impact of this speech on the bipartisan support, which is it's a national Israeli strategic interest, Aimee. It goes to the essence of our strategic alliance with the United States. So it affects you and me personally. On that score, I think we can say that this has not been helpful.
Let's talk about the Palestinian issue just very briefly. In the past, you were in favour of unilateral moves. And Moshe Kahlon, the head of your party, has said that he's against unilateral moves and that the party is also against them. Have you changed your mind?
Depends how you define unilateralism. Unilateralism moves, it tends to evoke the withdrawal from Gaza. And that's not what I'm talking about. Unilateralism sort of got a bad name, sometimes deservedly, because of the way the disengagement from Gaza was carried out, and certainly the aftermath. So it's sometimes deservedly bad name. When I talk about Israel taking its own destiny in its hands in the West Bank, I'm not talking about drawing borders. Here's the lay of the land the way it looks today. You have an Israeli left that's waiting for Abu Mazen to come back to the negotiating table. He's not coming. He's busy accusing us of war crimes.
You don't think he's a partner for peace?
I don't think he's right now a partner for peace. He may be in 2 weeks from now, but right now we can't bank on it. We can't afford to wait for him to make up his mind.
Okay.
It's more important we have to defend ourselves against him right now, not get him back to the negotiating table.
Okay.
I was involved in talks. I saw what we did to try to get him to the table, whether it be freezing settlements or releasing prisoners. It didn't work. He's not coming for all sorts of reasons. He may want to, may not be able to.
Okay.
There is a government position which is basically passive. It's not doing anything. And then you have the extreme right, which is wants to annex 60% of the West Bank, which I guarantee you will lose us not only Democratic support in Congress, will lose Republican support in Congress. It'll be dangerous. It'll be terrible. It'll be catastrophic for us. Other parties are waiting for the Saudis to come and hold a peace conference. None of this is real.
Okay, so what about the unilateral moves?
So the unilateral moves is we look very soberly at the situation in the territories and we say, okay, what do we have? What we have is we don't have a two-state solution coming up anytime soon, but what we do have is a de facto two-state situation. And the two-state situation is where we have large areas that are under de facto Palestinian control, whether it be in Ramallah, Nablus, Jenin, Bethlehem. The IDF is not patrolling in these cities. There's no soldiers downtown Ramallah. is Palestinians, about 90% of the Palestinians have significant control over their own lives. And we could take that two-state situation and make it much stronger. We can build up Palestinian de facto sovereignty in many ways, through water, through trade, that would lay the groundwork for future peace negotiations should they occur. I also think it's an important point that Israel has to limit where and how it builds in these areas.
Do you think it should stop building settlements in the West Bank?
I think it should conform to the understanding reached with President Bush in 2004, Barak Sharon. It was the Bush-Sharon letter. It said that, listen, there are going to be Jewish neighborhoods in Jerusalem. They're going to be the major settlement blocks, which will always remain part of Israel in any final status agreement. And we should abide by that understanding. And that understanding is very unusual in the annals of American diplomacy because it was approved by both houses of Congress. So it's about as good a commitment as you can get from the United States of America. If we stuck with it, and if we didn't erase the difference between, say, building a balcony in Gilo and building a community or a neighborhood in Itamar, in the remote parts of the West Bank, then we could make a case. We have to restore the legitimacy to building within these blocks, which we used to do without causing an international furor. Now we do, because that difference was erased.
You spoke earlier about a de facto independent Palestinian state. Do you think that would be just a temporary arrangement until the Palestinians eventually had their own state?
I think we have to abide by three major principles.
Okay.
One is that we have no intention of ruling over these people. What the world calls an occupation, we have to do our utmost to end. The other two would be one, not ruling over 2.5 million Palestinians, building only in those areas which an American administration and two houses of Congress have acknowledged will always be part of Israel. And third, always keeping the door open to negotiation. Right now, the fact that there is no Palestinian partner right now doesn't mean that there won't be in 2 years or 2 weeks. We don't know. But we should always say we are at the table and ready to negotiate.
And the ultimate goal is to have an independent Palestinian state beside Israel?
If the Palestinian emerges, Palestinian leadership emerges and says, okay, we're willing to negotiate. And the terms for Palestinians are well known. They're going to have to give up on the demand for Haifa and Jaffa. They're going to have to give up on the demand for returning 5 million refugees to Israel. These are not easy concessions for the Palestinians. There's a reason why the Palestinians haven't been willing to sign at the table. Because I came to my job as ambassador, as a historian, I look back not to 1993, but to 1923. And I see the great continuity there, why Palestinians haven't been able to accept the notion of a Jewish state here. It's very difficult for them. But should they ever make that decision and be able to do it, we should be at the table ready to negotiate. Okay.
Let's now look at your personal ambitions in politics.
Yes.
So this is your first time running as an elected official. Why, on a personal level, did you choose to embark on this challenge?
Gee, no one asked me that ever.
I'm interested to know.
Listen, I spent, because all my life I've been involved in contributing to Israel one way or the other, whether as a volunteer at kibbutz or a lone soldier or a liaison to the Zionist underground, the former Soviet Union, working for the Rabin government. So when I was in Washington, I was really doing politics at a very, very high level. So it was when I came back and I was looking for how I would continue to contribute, politics was a very obvious answer for me.
And why did you choose to join the Kulanu party?
The Kulanu party gives me, first of all, a tremendous amount of latitude in forming the diplomatic platform for the party. And as you've heard earlier, I have a very specific view about this that I've arrived at after the course of many decades of dealing with it. Also, Kulanu party is a social and economic party. And I feel very strongly that as a Jewish and democratic state, we can't turn our backs on the poor people of this country. About 20% of the population is beneath the poverty line, 35% of the children. We have one of the biggest income gaps in the world. I don't think as a Jewish and democratic state we can afford to ignore that.
And now you are no longer an American citizen.
I'm not.
But as a former American citizen, is there anything that you think you could bring from American politics or American culture to the Israeli political system?
Well, certainly a little civility would help. With all that yelling back and forth. Sometimes I enjoy it. I tell you, as long as it's not personal. One thing I was very impressed with in Washington was the tradition of hearings in Congress. My former colleague Dan Shapiro, the ambassador from the United States to Israel, even Secretary Kerry, other secretaries have to periodically appear before the Senate and Congressional Foreign Relations and Affairs Committees to talk about what they're doing. There's a tremendous amount of accountability there. I sat in Washington for 4.5 years. No one ever called me into Knesset to ask me, hey, what are you doing? What do things look like? What do you see from there that we don't see from here?
Michael Oren, thank you very much for joining us today on The Candidates. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Aimee.
I'm Aimee Amiga, and you're on Haaretz.com.